England, March 1603. The bells of London remain silent. Behind the thick stone walls of Richmond Palace, an old queen sits alone. She has refused food for days. She barely speaks. Her famous red hair has turned thin and gray beneath an elaborate wig. The white makeup that once symbolized eternal youth can no longer hide the wrinkles beneath. Around her stand nervous ladies-in-waiting, bishops and ministers. No one dares say what everyone already knows. England's greatest monarch is dying. For 44 years she ruled one of Europe's most dangerous kingdoms. She defeated mighty enemies, survived countless assassination plots, outlived every rival, turned a struggling island into an emerging world power, and yet now, the woman known as the Virgin Queen sits in complete silence. She has no husband, no children, no direct heir. With her final breath, one of England's greatest dynasties is about to disappear forever. This is the extraordinary story of Elizabeth I, the last Tudor. Elizabeth entered the world on September 7, 1533. Her father was King Henry V, perhaps the most famous king in English history. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, the woman Henry had risked everything to marry. England celebrated. The king expected a son. Instead, a daughter was born. The disappointment was immediate. Still, Henry believed sons would eventually follow. But fate had different plans. Before Elizabeth even reached her third birthday, disaster struck. Anne Boleyn was arrested, charged with adultery, incest, and treason. Most historians today believe the accusations were fabricated. On May 19, 1536, Elizabeth's mother was executed inside the Tower of London. The little princess never saw her again. Soon afterward, Parliament declared Elizabeth illegitimate. She lost her title as princess. She was removed from the royal succession, from potential future queen to unwanted royal child. It was a brutal beginning. Elizabeth grew up surrounded by danger. Henry VI married 4 more wives after Anne Boleyn. 1 died in childbirth. 1 was divorced. 1 survived him. Each marriage reshaped the royal family. Children who were heirs 1 year became political liabilities the next. Elizabeth learned an important lesson very early. In Tudor England, power could disappear overnight. Unlike many girls of her era, Elizabeth received one of Europe's finest educations. She mastered Latin, Greek, French, Italian, Spanish, history, philosophy, theology, music. She impressed scholars decades older than herself. One Tudor famously remarked that her mind was equal to any prince's in Europe. Knowledge became her greatest weapon, because unlike soldiers, no one could take it away. When Henry VI died in 1547, his young son Edward VI became king. Elizabeth was only 13. The kingdom entered another period of uncertainty. Powerful nobles fought for influence. Religious divisions deepened. Conspiracies became common. Then Edward died after only 6 years on the throne. His Catholic half-sister Mary became queen. History remembers her as Bloody Mary. Elizabeth now found herself in terrifying danger. Mary viewed Protestants with deep suspicion. Elizabeth was Protestant. When rebels rose against Mary's rule, Elizabeth was accused of involvement. Whether guilty or innocent hardly mattered. She was arrested, escorted through London's streets, and imprisoned in the Tower of London, the same fortress where her own mother had awaited execution. Elizabeth later admitted she believed every passing hour might be her last. Eventually she was released, but remained under strict surveillance. She survived by saying little, showing patience, and waiting. On November 17, 1558, Mary died. Elizabeth was 25 years old. As the news reached her, she reportedly quoted a verse from the Bible. "This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." After years of fear, she had become Queen of England, yet the crown she inherited was anything but secure. The treasury was nearly empty. England was divided by religion. France and Spain questioned her legitimacy. The Pope refused to recognize her authority. Many European rulers considered her an illegitimate ruler simply because she was born to Anne Boleyn. Some believed a woman should never govern a kingdom at all. Elizabeth understood that if she made one wrong decision, everything could collapse. One of her first achievements was restoring stability. Instead of violently forcing one religion upon everyone, Elizabeth sought a middle path. The Elizabethan religious settlement became one of the foundations of her reign. Not everyone accepted it. Catholics wanted Rome. Extreme Protestants wanted further reforms. Yet Elizabeth managed something remarkable. She prevented England from descending into the devastating religious wars that consumed much of Europe. She once remarked that she had no desire to make windows into men's souls. It was a practical philosophy. Peace mattered more than perfection. Then came the question that haunted her entire reign: marriage. Parliament demanded it. Foreign kings requested it. Princes from nearly every major European dynasty proposed marriage. The list seemed endless. Philip II of Spain, the Archdukes of Austria, French princes, Swedish kings, English noblemen. Everyone wanted the Queen's hand. Elizabeth became Europe's most sought-after bride. Yet year after year, she refused them all. Some historians believe she feared losing power to a husband. Others think childhood trauma made marriage impossible. Perhaps she simply understood that remaining unmarried gave England unmatched diplomatic leverage. As long as Elizabeth remained single, every European court hoped they still had a chance. Marriage became her greatest political weapon. By never happening, she carefully crafted an unforgettable public image. She called herself the Virgin Queen. Portraits rarely showed signs of aging. Artists painted smooth skin, golden hair, perfect features. Even as decades passed, her appearance became less about reality and more about power. The Queen herself became a symbol, almost mythical. The nation wasn't simply ruled by Elizabeth. England believed in Elizabeth. Her reign also witnessed one of history's greatest cultural explosions. London's population surged. Trade expanded. New ideas flourished. The English language itself transformed. The theaters became crowded every afternoon. Among the playwrights rising to fame was a man named William Shakespeare. His works would eventually become some of the most celebrated literature ever written. Exploration also accelerated. Sir Francis Drake circumnavigated the globe. English sailors challenged Spanish dominance across the oceans. Merchants established new trading networks, stretching farther than ever before. The foundations of the future British Empire were quietly being laid. But peace would never last forever. England's greatest enemy remained Spain. King Philip II viewed Elizabeth as both a political rival and a religious heretic. Relations deteriorated for years. Finally, in 1588, Spain launched one of history's most famous invasions, the Spanish Armada. Around 130 ships, thousands of soldiers, an enormous fleet designed to conquer England. Fear swept the kingdom. If Spain succeeded, Elizabeth would almost certainly be executed. Yet instead of hiding, she rode to Tilbury. There she addressed her waiting soldiers. Her speech became legendary. "I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too." The words electrified her army. Soon afterward, English ships, superior tactics, and violent storms shattered the Armada. The defeated Spanish fleet struggled home. England celebrated. Elizabeth became a living legend. The victory changed European history forever. Yet greatness carried an enormous personal cost. Elizabeth's closest companion, Robert Dudley, died. Many believed he had been the great love of her life. His death deeply affected her. Later came the tragedy of Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex. Young, charismatic, once her favorite, but ambition overcame loyalty. In 1601, Essex led a failed rebellion against the Queen. Elizabeth had little choice. He was convicted of treason and executed. The decision haunted her. Age was catching up. Friends disappeared. Trusted advisors died one by one. The brilliant court that had once sparkled with energy slowly faded away. By 1603, Elizabeth was nearly 70 years old, remarkably old for the 16th century. She suffered from exhaustion, insomnia, melancholy, possibly recurring infections. Some historians suggest poisoning from cosmetics containing lead may have worsened her condition. She increasingly withdrew from public life. Finally, she stopped speaking almost entirely. For days she sat upon cushions, refusing to lie in bed because she believed doing so meant surrendering to death. Those around her begged her to rest. She refused. The queen who had resisted Europe itself was now resisting mortality. During the early hours of March 24th, 1603, Elizabeth I died peacefully at Richmond Palace. She had ruled for nearly 45 years. Her death marked the end of the Tudor dynasty, a family that had transformed England forever. The crown passed peacefully to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. For the first time, England and Scotland shared one monarch. A new era had begun. Elizabeth never became a wife, never became a mother, yet she shaped the destiny of an entire nation. She inherited division and left stability. She inherited weakness and left confidence. She inherited uncertainty and left a kingdom prepared to become one of history's greatest global powers. Centuries later, her speeches are still quoted. Her reign remains known as England's Golden Age. Her image still symbolizes strength, intelligence, and resilience. History remembers many kings who inherited powerful kingdoms, but Elizabeth I built hers through patience, strategy, and extraordinary determination. The little girl once declared illegitimate, the princess whose mother was executed, the prisoner who expected death inside the Tower of London, ultimately became one of the greatest monarchs the world has ever known. She was the last Tudor, and for many, the greatest of them all. The end.